It's the beginning of a new week, a chance to recenter ourselves on Jesus and His Word, and to be transformed by the power of God. I hope this video finds you well whenever you watch it. Today is March the 7th. It's a Monday, and you should be reading in Numbers chapter 8, 9, 10, and 11, as well as in Colossians chapter 1. I don't know about you all. I know me fairly well, and I'm discovering more things about myself all the time. One of the things I know about me is that sometimes I'm a really, really good listener. And then there are other times where I'm not a good listener. One time I'm reminded of not being a good listener. I used to work for a ministry that we actually support as a church called Koinonia Christian Campus Ministry. And we were on a spring break trip doing service projects at a camp in Florida. And we were needed to do some plumbing work. And mind you, I'm not the best handyman person in the world, and I'm getting better at it all the time. But especially then, this was about 12 years ago. And I was on this trip with a group of people, and one of the adults on the trips knew what he was doing with plumbing. And he told me what I needed to do to fix this problem in the yard. We needed to replace a valve. We needed to replace a junction point where these, where the pipes were coming in outside of this house. And I could have sworn the man said to me, "Whatever you do, make sure you use a hammer." So I did. I gathered the pipes. I did everything I was supposed to do with the glue and stuff. I set it in and I hammered it, and guess what happened? I broke more of the lines in the process. So something that we were supposed to be without water for like 30, 40 minutes ended up being we were out without water for like 4 hours because of me. And I remember he comes running over and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I used this and I used the hammer to hit in it." He's like, "Kenan, I told you, whatever you do, do not use a hammer." And I learned in that moment, sometimes I'm not the best listener. Sometimes I only hear partial instructions because I don't listen for the entire thing. And I easily forget what God has instructed me to do or what people have instructed me to do. And the same thing happens in our passage today. I don't know if you caught that. Numbers chapter 8, 9, 10, and 11, God is reminding his people a few more things because they're about to depart from Mount Sinai. They've been camped under this mountain. God has been delivering his commandments to them, his rules of what it looks like to be his people, and he sends them out to go be his people now. And this is what happens in Numbers chapter 11, verse 1. Now, the people complained about their hardships in the hearing of the Lord. And when he heard them, his anger was aroused. Then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. When the people cried out to Moses, he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So the place was called Taberah, because fire from the Lord had burned among them. And it doesn't stop there. We'll get back to this in a second. And then the rabble with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." They complained. They complained about their hardships in the desert, even though, did you know that at this point, they didn't have to worry about water or food. God literally provided it for them every day. Everything they needed for that day, he provided for them. And they complained, and his anger burned against them. Moses prayed, he saved them. And then after they saw all this punishment happen from their complaining, they complained again about this stupid quail from heaven and the manna. Did you know that God was the one who provided that? They were hungry. And so God provided them quail and manna, and they said, "This isn't good enough for us. We want better." You see, they've forgotten They had forgotten that they were slaves in Egypt for 430 years. They had access to some cool food, but if you read back in Exodus, they did not like the manual labor. They didn't like being prisoners to another people. They may like the food, but everything else stunk. They were led out of Egypt by the hand and power of God. They were delivered from their enemies. They were delivered from the Amalekites. They were delivered from all these things. And yet, they still forgot. They still complained. They still didn't listen. And there's something to be learned in that, I think. You see, you and I have been given the most precious resource from heaven, God's Spirit dwelling in us. And with that, we also get this. Very words of God telling us how to live, teaching us how to follow Him better, who He is, what His character is like. And yet, you and I, we forget to. We forget about the goodness of God. We forget how He provides for us, and we start to complain. It's because we don't listen. We don't remember everything we've been instructed. So church, I want to challenge you this week to stop complaining about what God has provided for you, to look for the joy, to look for the blessings of the Lord. God's people should be the most thank-filled people on the planet. Look for the blessings of God. But also, I want to challenge you to look for ways in your life that maybe you've only been half listening to the instructions of God. Maybe you're not seeing the blessings of God like we talked about on Friday. Maybe you're not seeing those blessings because you're not really listening to God. Maybe you were like me in the story earlier. Maybe you only partially listened and you're actually doing more damage because you didn't fully listen to what God's instructed you to do. And if you need help discovering those things, that's why our church staff is here. That's why our elders are here. We want to partner with you and walk alongside you. You're not meant to do this journey alone. And we want to help you take next steps in following Jesus so you can glorify God by being a disciple of people who love and obey Jesus, by making more disciples everywhere you go. Church, till we see you tomorrow, you are sent.